Get excited.
I didn't know that people were going to spam my name all over the place. I didn't ask for it. I got the email last night. I set the alarm. Look, I got my coffee, 9 in the morning, and you're
Come on,
killing
Chris.
me here.
Admit it, man. Admit it. You sent 4 fans to this recast to get them to request you to come on screen. Admit it, man.
God,
Come on,
Chris.
You were bombing Twitter. Bombing Twitter. With come on.
Look at my Twitter feed. Not a single mention. So, and I would have, if you guys would have asked, I would have done it. I didn't know it. Just said, hey, we're going to send this link out. So I would have done it. So thank you, first of all, to the entire team. You guys are really transforming models. And where do I begin with the questions that I have? I'll keep it focused.
Great.
First, are you hiring?
Great.
Second,
yes, we are hiring.
Great, that's good. It's community acceleration features to help engage current patrons. Where does that fit in the grand scheme of things? For example, I had to, years ago when I was experimenting with monetization models around content, what I did was I had like an IRC chat room, or I'm sorry, that's a little redundant. I had an IRC like back on my screen when I was streaming video. And so people who were supporters could basically join the chat and they became a part of that video. Currently, I have no way of actively engaging without some kind of connection to another service, actively engaging patrons. And unfortunately, there was a patron who leaked the chat room so that way I couldn't use the acceleration feature. Those types of tools seem to me to be more helpful for people who have an existing base who already believes in them, to be able to further engage them and to be able to get them from, let's say if they're willing to commit to $1 a month, for $2 a month, you would get access to a chat room. For $3 a month, you get access to a tool that Patreon has built to further engage the people who already believe, rather than the content creators having to pound the pavement over and over again to convince the unconvincible.
Dude, you're so on the money.
Dude, how do you?
No, you're just like yes. I mean that's so. I'm gonna. So here's one thing that we just because I wouldn't normally say this because we just came up with the idea. We were gonna call it sexy chat, and then we decided not to call it sexy chat because that sounds like something that it's not. But we thought the interface would be like sexy.
Right, but what would I do with that? I mean, people would think that it would be sexy, and then I'd show up on camera and go, this is not sexy, and then they'd quit.
Exactly. So we can't call it sexy chat. Oh, somebody's suggesting saucy chat. That could be right? Saucy chat, I like that. So, okay, so Chris, imagine, man, so one of the things we want to do in our mobile app, and this may be the first thing that we build, is like for the mobile app. Imagine there's like a 10-minute chat or a 15-minute chat. Your patrons of a certain tier get a notification, and it's in-app, so it can't be shared. It's only for patrons. It's not a link. It's just a push notification so patrons hanging out, doing their day, walking around, boom, Chris Pirillo wants to chat. You click your phone, and boom, you're in a chat with Chris Pirillo. It lasts 10 minutes, and then it's over. It's like a fleeting moment. Like maybe it's even a stream, so you can like show where you are. If you're backstage at a Skrillex concert, I don't know, whatever. You can like let people know and let people see it and talk with people for a few minutes. But those kinds of tools where it's very easy for you to reward your patrons or just communicate with your patrons, just say hello even, or share a picture or whatever it is. Those kinds of things are super important. I say that about everything. I feel so bad, but it's true.
Exactly.
That's where you're saying what's the priority?
Well, I understand you guys are firing on a million priorities, and that's great. The issue is I feel now, I don't know if this is a simple toggle, but I feel like I'm flooding my patrons, or some of them are not getting the email notifications every time, and so they're losing out on the values that they already have. And it's difficult for me to be able to do things, because I guess I'm on a different model than a lot of people are.
Right.
But ultimately not flooding out those patrons so they almost feel overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that they might get versus getting exactly what they want.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. I see what you're saying. It sounds like the core of it is like having. So okay, let me explain another thing that we're thinking about doing. Right now, rewards on Patreon require a creator to be extremely creative. It's like, hey, figure out how to reward your patrons, right? Come up with a great idea that gets people excited, and right, and then you do that. That's what the creator has to do. We as Patreon need to assume some of the responsibility for keeping not for keeping patrons happy, but for empowering the creator with tools
Right.
to do that. So we were gonna right, yeah. And that's our responsibility. You're absolutely right. So one thing that we're gonna do is have a standardized rewards option. So imagine when a creator signs up for Patreon, instead of having to fill in a blank slew of rewards. On the left side, they get to pick and choose a few standard options, like the 10-minute disappearing chat or the photo stream. Like, imagine you had a patron-only photo stream, right?
Genius.
Or like
You're
or live webcasts, right? So you just pick and choose. I'm going to do this. I'm going to build this, and each one of those things is in the mobile app. It's direct communication. There's push notifications. It's tools to help you do your thing better, right? That's what you're talking about. Yeah. So
absolutely.
So standardized rewards. That's like it's another top priority. It's the kind of thing that's like on the current roadmap. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
we're
what
gonna do it. We're gonna do it within
exactly.
like. It's what we need. I agree, man. I agree. It's totally what we need, and we're gonna do it soon. Yeah.
And I'll let you go after this because I know there are a lot of people that are begging for your time. This is very important for me, and I think part of my acceleration with growth and engaging an existing community. And I talked with you about this, but I understand the need for transparency. But unfortunately, and I think this is a point that was made in the poll numbers below, it's a false. I mean, it's the accurate number, but it's an inaccurate number. And when someone who sees that number on the page, what they focus on is the dollar amount, and they don't know anything about the costs that go into something. So it's like a tip jar that's already full. And I have not concentrated on that at all. It's not about the money. It's about the support. It's about the number of patrons. Even if you don't want to hide that number, the frustrating part is that I have to go overboard to convince people, and like it's not about that number. I'm accelerate the value of goals based on the amount of true patrons who exist and who have been processed fully to be the focal point for any particular campaign. If this is community focused, it's not about the money. If it's community focused, it's about the people.
Yeah.
What can you do about
it? Yeah, so that's an amazing point. Here's what I will say. I do think the dollar amount is important, even in the context of a community. This is something that, gosh, we have held a very strong line on. Some people have said, I want to do a Patreon page, but I don't want to display the dollars that I'm making. So, and we say no. The reason we have such a hard line about not only is it to unify creators across all the site, but it's also because if some people are showing it and some people aren't showing it, it's not fair to the people who are showing it. And the reason we want to show it for some people is because it gets people excited. And actually the psychological effect that you're describing is one way of thinking about it, but the converse is like, don't forget, like, churches, bars, people preload tip jars with 10s and 20s to make other churches and bars. Anybody who passes around a hat.
Be honest with the number. Be honest with the numbers, because I have a 20%
that we need to do.
The number that's posted publicly and the actual number that's processed. So there's a discrepancy with the number of patrons being true patrons or active patrons
that needs
or processed patrons. So I
completely agree.
My issues with transparency. If you're going to post one number, post all numbers, not just one number, because it's a false number. Someone could sign up for a $1,000 patron. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but they could.
Everybody's saying good point, Chris. So true, so true. Yep.
So I don't mind. Just be honest with it, because otherwise I have to be. You're forcing my hand to be more transparent, and I have been. I've shown like the number of the Patreon versus ads is such a wild discrepancy. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
So, but I have to show people the real number, and you're not surfacing that real number. Just surface the real number. That's it. Not an artificial number.
So what we can do and what I think we should do is either make it possible for creators to choose to show a more accurate number. Right now, it's very hard for us to estimate because it's different every month, depending on how many patrons they have that are paying more or less, or credit card fees. Right, credit card fees one month could be 5%, and the next month they're 3%, and the next month they're 7%. So and breakage too, that's another thing we don't have control over, but we're trying to improve constantly. I guess your point is like, okay, but show that, right? Like, so you don't know what it's going to be, but show that. And yes.
Because I'm telling you, people see 6,000 on my site and they assume, oh, Chris is just breaking in. I'm like, I'm paying people right now, number one. Number two, some patrons sign up to get bonuses immediately and there's no escrow. And I know you guys say you're working on escrow, but there's actually a guy who's commenting in the chat who's cheated the system a couple of times. So there are ways that once people figure out their way around it, will work to exploit you, and it'll hurt smaller creators more than it's probably going to hurt bigger creators, but it's still an issue of transparency.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I'm with you, man. I totally agree. We need to solve that. I love you. I know you do. I know you do, man.
I'm like squeezing you to death here, but I want to make sure it's a good system, not just for me, but for everybody else as well. So I don't think that anything that I would suggest would come at a detriment to anybody in the system.
Everybody says amen, Chris. Amen. So Brandon said, give that guy a high five. Okay. So give me a digital high five here. Okay, great.
All right, I will go. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, man. And let's bring on Chris Pate. Let's bring on Chris